How's it going, my flesh and blood lore lovers? This is the final openings for Uprising. We're going to crack open an entire case because this won the lore booster box games. With that, doesn't matter what rarities we're pulling, this is all just for the fun of it winning. It's the first one that did. And I'm going to discuss every hero that is in this set. So we're going to be talking about Fi, Dromai, and Icelander. We're going to talk about the story that's on the Flesh and Blood website of their specific lore. And we're going to have fun looking at some cards along the way. So I hope you all enjoy.
Life was never easy in the forests of flames. Farmers and foresters eked out a meager living from the land, barely making enough to feed their families once the Emperor's tax collectors had taken their due. Fi's mother, Min, spoke of a better time when Volkai and Drakai would walk the roads of Volcor, hand in hand, ruling the Emperor as equals. Fi didn't listen. He was too busy playing minion to his sister's mastermind, while Dromai drew the eye with monsters and wonders of ash and soot. Fi applied his swift hands and feet to the delights of petty larceny. No trove of childish treats was safe from this devious duo. Of course, she would scold him when he gave half their haul away to the poorest children of the village. But what else could he do? Min had taught him that life was never fair by nature, only by practice. Then the Drakai brought his soldiers and burned their village, forcing Fi and Min to flee into the forest with their kith and kin. They lost many good people that day, his sister among them. Apparently, life really wasn't fair. From that day forth, Fi paid heed to his mother's words. He vowed to forge her dreams with fire and steel. He trained to breaking point. He fought until he bled. The flames of his past became the beacons of his future. Loss made him listen. A fair life was a right, not a privilege. He would rise from the ashes of his childhood and brand that lesson upon the soft and pampered skin of all Drakai. With blade in hand, Fi would make sure the Volkai never suffered again.
Will they rise?
Asks Un as she ties back her silver hair, ready for battle. We have fed these people, given them hope. Fi wasn't as confident as he made out, but as his mother would want to say,
Bravery is in the belief.
Un jerks her thumb at the stack of sacks behind them, each stenciled with the tree and coin mark of Golden Orchard Estate.
We have fed them with stolen rice. We made them accomplices to our own hopes. In the eyes of the imperial court, they are as good as dead.
Fi's mother had another saying.
Courage is born when choices die. They could have turned us in. They still might.
No, they will rise. The generals have bled our people bone dry, while the Drakai live their bright and comfortable lives. We are the spark that will ignite a million fires. The Drakai will be forced to leash their inferior hounds, to govern with care, lest they face the full fury of the Volkai. Un claps her hands, slow and sardonic.
Well done for remembering your mother's speech.
You don't believe it?
When I see it, boy.
The hours crawl by, restless yet sluggish, like a river of lava. This is Phi's first mission for the rebellion. The raids against Phelan's caravans and a state where the gathering of kindling. Here, the spark will take. The fire will bloom. The fighting man in him boils with excitement, ready to pour all of his anguish, all of his anger upon these imperial oppressors. The frightened boy in him thrashes against his resolve, aching to flee back to Teoking, to hide among the glowing trees of the forest of flames, and never come out. It is almost a relief to see the dust cloud in the distance, almost a pleasure to see General Riku's vanguard poke its head like a giant black snake out of the foothills.
So he does want his merchant back,
says Un. Phi glances at the bound and gagged woman. Phelan, purveyor of coal and rice. A woman of gold living off the salt of her serfs. Money talks when reason falls silent.
That another of men's bloody sayings?
No, one of mine.
Then you're smarter than you look.
Phi taps the scarred side of his face. I remember my lessons. The old burn feels hot, inflamed, like his village the night Riku's soldiers took Dromai. The night he fled with the survivors into the forest. The thought of his sister only fans the flames of his anger. His sweating palms itch, yearning for the grip of his sword. But he breathes through the smoldering emotions, forces himself to calm. They have to listen to us, to the people. The admiration fades from Un's gray eyes.
I take it back. You are as dumb as you are ugly.
We capture General Riku. Phi puts some steel in his voice, reminding Un who is in charge of this mission. We use him as a bargaining tool in our negotiations with the Emperor. That's the plan. Un draws her sword, tests the edge with her thumb. You hear me? She shrugs.
Hope he's bringing some Jerkai with him. Did you know dragon blood steams as it spills?
Something furtive flickers in Un's eyes.
So I'm told.
There is more she's not telling him. But Phi figures now is not the time to pry. If there is Jerkai, we take them alive. And they must see how we live, how we suffer. With their own eyes. Torve changed, so can they. Un turns away from him, sizes up the approaching army.
Torve was a dangerous fool.
She carves a lazy figure 8 in the air, working and warming her wrists.
There are many roads to Ashvan, Phi. The trick is not to die before you get there. Wasn't planning to, Un.
They wait and watch as Riku's army spreads like tar across the fields and farms. The soldiers settle in, occupying key positions as they prepare for an assault from within. Phi waits until they are comfortable, compromised, and lights the bonfire. Rebels throw off their Centauri disguises. Mercenary allies turning to zealous enemies before the Imperials' startled eyes. Farmers pounce from hatch and hole, using their knowledge of the land to throw their unwitting visitors into chaos. Riku's carefully chosen positions become death traps as his soldiers clash with rebels on all sides. Fi and Un charge with their veteran ninjas down the hillside. They puncture the enemy's flank like a dagger slipping between plates of armor. Sword points stab at frightened faces and pierce screaming throats. Blades slice through raised wrists and craning necks like reapers in a field. The raiders harvest life and limb, quenching the earth with imperial blood. Yet, for every soldier that falls to rebel ferocity, 3 farmers fall to the cold, hard rigors of military training. Hammers and axes are no match for spears and halberds. Anger is no match for discipline. The people wail and weep as friends and family fall. Some surrender, some run, leaving Fi's ninjas to face the Empire alone.
Cowards!
Hisses Un. Again, Min's words ring through the din of battle.
Bravery is in the belief.
Though his weary muscles ache, his lungs gasp for breath. Fi meets a charging foe with a perfect strike that takes the man's head clean off. Hot blood spatters across his chest and face. Through the pulsing heart of the battle, Fi sees the raven-haired general upon his flame-maned steed. He remembers the cruel lines of that lean face, the gleam of the imperial dragon on his golden breastplate. He remembers the flames of his burning village reflected in those dark eyes.
To me!
Roars Fi. He blocks a lunging halberd and drives his sword through the wielder's face, splitting the soldier's skull like an apple. As he tugs his blade free, he feels rather. Then sees Un and the remaining rebels fall in behind. Their courage fuels his own, and he leaps once more into the fray. Bloodied Imperials tumble to the ground as Fi's fighters slash a path through the melee. They do not stop, do not even pause for breath, until Fi is but a sword's length from General Riku.
Where are those bedamned Jukai?
It is a desperate screech from Riku to a bewildered lieutenant. Fi sees the glistening fear in the general's eyes. He surges forward to make the most of the man's moment of weakness, only to collide with a cliff face of muscle and hardened leather. The giant bodyguard growls like a bear and swings at Fi with a broad-bladed battle axe. Though Fi spins away as quick as his reflexes will allow, the soldier's speed bellies his bulk. The axe tip scores a searing line across Fi's side. Yet, the pain only serves to drive the battle wariness from Fi's limbs. It lifts the exhausted fog from his mind. He sees a way to reach the general and takes it. Fi faints high, then drives his sword through the bodyguard's meaty thigh. The weapon sticks fast. Fi doesn't yank it free. Where he's going, he won't need it. This mad endeavor will either work or he'll be dead, and his brave rebels with him. The man howls with rage and raises his axe to squash the unarmed ant before him. Fi catches hold of his breastplate, steps onto the sword handle jutting from his leg, and climbs him like a tree. From the surprised giant's shoulders, Fi launches himself at Riku's horse and lands astride its hind quarters. Before Riku can turn to wonder at his passenger, Fi has the general's own dagger at his throat. He presses his lips to the man's ear and hisses,
I am willing to die for my people. Are you?
Lay down your weapons.
It comes out as a squeak, but the closest lieutenant relays the order. Hoarse shouts from nearby officers echo the general's surrender. They are soon followed by the clatter of dropped spears and halberds. Fi can see the relief in the soldiers' eyes. They didn't want this fight any more than the farmers did. Perhaps some had cousins here, even brothers and sisters. The only difference between fighters and the farmers is whether they carried a halberd or a hoe. Fi escorts Riku to their hilltop camp, while the farmers and soldiers turn to the work of gathering and burning their dead. It becomes a shared chore. Most of these soldiers were farm folk once. It is an easy return to their roots, instinctual and welcome. Only a few need to be bound and watched. The city-born officers groomed from birth to serve the draconic codes. Fi pitches in with his people, carting corpses with care, building pyres for their funeral rites. He works until dusk, until a scream from the hilltop sends him sprinting through the camp. He knocks down a woman bringing water to the wounded, barks a hasty apology, and continues running. 2 more screams echo down from the hilltop before he gets there. Phelan's final scream is cut off as Un runs her blade across the merchant's throat. Blood gushes over Un's knife hand and down the woman's plush ash fur coat. Her painted eyes lose their luster, and the richest woman in the east topples onto the dirt. Nearby, Riku howls through his gag and struggles with his bonds.
No!
Growls Fi.
This is the way of revenge, not revolution.
He points down the hillside at the toiling Volkai.
Our numbers have already grown. Word is spreading.
What better way than to write those words in blood? Let the Drakai read their doomed futures in freshly gutted entrails.
Un sinks her knife into the twitching woman's belly and opens her from flank to flank. Fi looks away as the gorge rises in his throat. Un laughs as she kneels beside the general and cleans Phelan's blood from her knife with Riku's cloak.
Too disgusted to hear what she had to say?
You tortured her. She would have told you anything to make you stop.
Un stands and shrugs.
Sounded true to me.
She recites a list of names and homes of the Drakai that Phelan had taken an interest in. There is a mischievous glint in her eye as she says the last name, having kept the best for last.
Dromai.
The name is a slap to Fi's face. His scars burn hot in his flesh.
You know where she is?
I told you there are many roads to Ashvan, boy.
She points her bloody dagger at General Riku.
The trick is knowing who to kill to get there.
A trap laid for a spy master and his ash artist compliance. Un as the bait that Zathari would be compelled to take. Hundreds of ninjas waiting in ambush, swords drawn for the soldiers, nets and spears readied for Dromai's dragons. Un's plan was cunning, if I had to give her that. Since the massacre at Golden Orchard, Un had been obsessed with ridding Volcor of that scheming snake. With Zathari and his fire sight extinguished, it would be easier to infiltrate the Imperial Palace, to tear the Drakai down from within. The Lord Wizards were growing desperate. Inspired by the fallen rebels of Golden Orchard, Volkai were taking up arms all across Volcor. The many feathers of the phoenix were burning bright. Naturally, the snake would seek to bite off the phoenix's head. And so, Un would stick out her own neck, would make herself an irresistible delicacy to the serpent's fangs. In Phi's mind, it should have worked. He slides beneath the dragon's exposed underbelly. His sword cuts deep, and his momentum drags the blade down the full length of the creature's abdomen. He expects a cascade of guts. Instead, the dragon's white flanks shiver, rippling like water. And then, the beast is gone. No carcass. No blood. Nothing to mark that it ever existed. Nothing but the mutilated corpses of his comrades. Phi looks to Un, who now kneels before Dromai. The rebel leader's left arm is missing. Her shoulder is a mangled stump, yet she still grins up at his sister, her eyes wild. Behind Dromai, Zathari leans on his staff, the spy master's right hand pressed to a wound in his flank. Blood bubbles between his fingers and soaks his robes. He coughs, a wet rasp, as blood trickles from the corner of his mouth.
Kill her!
He wheezes. Phi levels his sword at Dromai.
Please, sister, don't.
Min didn't spare my mother's life.
Snaps Dromai.
She didn't think twice about murdering my father. What makes this life any more worthy than theirs?
Murdered your father?
Shock chokes the words in his throat.
Min, she could never. Why?
Un's laughter cuts him off. A hacking cackle that sends a spasm through her crippled body.
You believe that?
She manages, tears running down her face.
The truth is much more fun.
Zathari steps towards Un. Flames guttering in his palm. Phi notices the weakness in his fire, the exhaustion in his face. He raises his sword, ready to throw it if he has to. Zathari freezes. The flames die away.
Min didn't kill your parents.
Sneers Un.
I did. And who told me where to find them?
She raises her trembling hand and points at Zathari. Zathari stares back, his eyes full of hatred.
Torve walked among the Volkai.
Says Un.
He flattered and fumbled, loved and lost. He ate, slept, and shat in a bucket, just like the rest of us.
He was an embarrassment.
Hisses Zathari.
And would have drowned our cause in words.
Continues Un.
Endless talk that changes nothing. What about Sani?
Dromai's voice is taut, a humming wire about to break. Un shrugs, then winces from the pain of it.
She must have loved Torve more than she loved you.
Dromai smiles, an expression so bleak, so distant, that almost breaks Phi's heart. Then she whispers something, a single word, and the ground answers her. Jaws burst through the rock with such force that the tremor knocks Fi off his feet. Those jaws close around Un. She is gone in an instant. Consumed. The great purple dragon hauls itself out of the crater, shakes off rubble and ash, and turns to Fi.
Not him!
Commands Dromai. She points at Zathari. The Drakai shrieks with fear. Tries to run. Flames billow around him as teeth close shut on his limping form. The dragon tosses him into the air, and with a snap of its great jaws, it swallows the wriggling man down. Fi struggles to his feet, his heart pounding. Sword held in a white-knuckled grip, knowing not what else he can do. He takes a step towards Dromai.
Go home, Fi. Tell Min that I am sorry.
She climbs up onto her dragon, and with a beat of the creature's mighty wings, takes to the air. Fi watches her slip away through the haze of swirling dust. He looks to the blood-stained dirt where Un kneeled but moments before, and then to the scorched earth where the spy master was taken. No more lies. No more secrets. The Emperor is blind. His dragons are turning against him. Fi thrusts his sword into the ash and earth, planting his fury in the firmament of his beloved Volcor. No longer will the Volkai be ground into the dirt. It is time for the Phoenix to rise.
Dromai barely remembers her parents, Torve, the Drakai, and Sani of the Sandfolk, murdered before she had even learned to walk. Men of the Forest of Flames found her, raised her in a humble village amongst the struggle and strife of Volkai life. A hatchling dragon in the nest of the Phoenix. She and Min's son became as thick as thieves. Dromai was the mastermind, deceiving and dismaying with wit and illusion. Her adoptive brother was her minion, liberating sweets and toys from childish rivals. Yet Dromai did not plan these capers for the simple fun of it. She planned them for the practice, for the preparation. She felt different, a pretender among the peasants. Deep in her heart, Dromai knew she was destined for greater things. When the Drakai led her away from that burning village, she did not weep. She did not even look back. She had never belonged there. Hers was the way of the Drakai, where power awaited beyond her imagining? No. Dromai's imagination is as boundless as her ambition. She is an ash artist, and her visions will strike terror into the hearts of all who behold them.
Benserikai!
Calls Dromai.
Osvalai! Necria!
Vincerikai bursts from a fire-gutted house, raw and red with fury. Osvalai's crystal scales glisten in the desert sun as she rises from the ashes of a temple. Necria shakes free of a charred corpse pile, a lithe monstrosity hatching from a loathsome cocoon. The Imperial soldiers look up in awe as the dragons attack the towering wall of sandstone. They have seen their comrades die on that wall for months on end. They have suffered the blistering sun and the water rations. the scathing sandstorms, and haunting desert nights. These defenses have protected the Sandfolk for centuries, and still they hold strong, though never have they faced a woman like Dromai. And Sarakai smashes through sandstone like a boulder propelled from a volcano. Necria melts mortar and bricks with billows of noxious gas. Osvalai darts through the holes to bite and tear at the enemy illusionists beyond. Red paints the white sands as the first illusionist loses his head to Osvalai's snapping jaws. Another rushes forward to repair the wall, only to be bisected by the crystal dragon's sharp tail. The wall is a figment of the Sandfolk's imagination, made manifest in the minds of the men who stand before it. Dromai's dragons fly the same thin line between dream and reality. Yet, when an illusion is powerful enough, seeing truly is believing. Semblance becomes stone. Fancy becomes flesh,
We should have brought you here from the beginning.
says Zathari.
You honor your father's memory.
Torbe was betrayed by love.
Answers Dromai.
I have no such weakness.
As the wall crumbles, the remaining illusionists drive Asvalai back with spinning tornadoes of sand. Dromai dances her dragons between the dust devils with the graceful motion of her hands. Necria douses a pair of illusionists with foul fumes from her skeletal maw. The women scream as the flesh runs in rivulets from their bones.
No sentiment for your mother's own people?
Wonders the Drakai spy master,
The woman who left me with traitors? Never.
as if her thought is a summons. Sani shimmers into existence before Dromai's startled eyes. She was a babe in arms when her mother was murdered. Yet, Dromai recognizes the sandalwood scent, soft and comforting.
Is something wrong?
Zathari's voice is distant, barely discernible.
Don't you see her?
See who?
Harsh reality snaps back into place as Vinserakai is torn limb from limb by a tornado. Sani vanishes, a mirage summoned by the enemy to distract Dromai. She tries to rein in her remaining dragons, but it's too late. A twister leaves Asvalai limp and broken. Another swallows Necria, bone by bone.
I spoke too soon.
Zathari's voice is flat, inscrutable.
Perhaps you are the pathetic half-blood they say you are.
Fire of anger flickers beneath her weariness, though her mind reels from the sight of her sandfolk mother and the loss of her dragons. She lifts her chin, facing Zathari's disappointment with dignity.
I will try again.
You are dead on your feet.
All I need is rest.
No.
He gestures at the great wall that grows once more from the sand, already towering over his army.
Surprise broke the siege. If only for a moment. It will not work for a second time. Our supplies are low, and morale is even lower.
He turns to look at the distant silhouette of Mount Volcor.
We are done here.
Dromai forces herself to watch the army's withdrawal, to sear this failure into her memory with a white-hot brand. If she is to become a Drakai, she must never turn from shame. She must never forget. Back in Ashvan, the restless days crawl by as Dromai bides her time. Every day, she pores over the tomes of the 12 dragons. Every day, she practices her art, driving herself to exhaustion, so that her sleep is empty of shameful dreams. Every day, she petitions Zathari for another mission, another chance to prove herself. On the 13th day, Zathari visits her chambers, a modest room at the rear of the palace, little better than a soldier's quarters. There has been an insurrection, begins Zathari.
You have spoken with the Emperor?
He raises his hand, silencing her.
The rebels have captured General Riku.
She has not heard that name for 10 years. Not since Zathari came to her village. Not since Riku's soldiers drove her murderous foster mother into the forest. Not since Min's lies were burned away by the Drakai's truth about her real parents.
If you bring him to the palace, alive and well,
Continues Zathari.
we will declare you Drakai.
The stain of her Volkai blood washed clean. Dromai hides her excitement behind a mask of determination.
When do we leave?
They ride out at first light with 1,000 hussars at their backs. At dusk of the second day, they reach the mangled outer fields of Golden Orchard Estate. The air is thick with the meaty sweetness of funeral pyres. Peasants pick over the corpses of imperial soldiers, heaping their plunder onto carts.
Find Riku,
Growls Zathari. Dromai rides for the hill overlooking the estate. Campfires line the slopes, and at its summit a bonfire burns bright, brazen against the gathering gloom. The cavalry thunders behind her, crushing under hoof any scavenger who fails to reach shelter. Thousands of hoofbeats echo the thousands of dream beats that herald the Emperor's rare appearance that day. 10 years ago, her first visit to the throne room. All of her fire and courage, her calm and poise, fled her in an instant. Never had she witnessed such power. A power to bow to, a power to aspire to. Dromai chants as she rides. When she hits the edge of the rebel encampment, Tomultai lifts off from the skeleton of a burned out barn. His hide is as hard as petrified lava, and his bared teeth drip with fresh magma. Rebels try to muster, raising stolen halberds and spears, bracing them as a pointed barricade against the approaching cavalry. Tomultai's jagged tail sweeps them aside. Dromai rides over their broken bodies and urges her steed up the hill. Rebels spill from their tents. Tomultai greets them with dragon fire. Behind her, Zathari directs his hussars through the confusion. His firesight allows him to read the flames like a map. That is how he knew of Riku's capture. The fires told him, just as they told him all those years ago, where to find Dromai, the orphan. At the crown of the hill, Dromai dismounts and takes cover behind a broken tree. Ahead of her, a silver-haired woman stands over a finely dressed corpse. Next to the dead woman, bound and gagged, lies her prize, General Riku, bloodied and cowed, but alive. Silver hair barks orders to the fighters who are holding the high ground against Zathari's cavalry. One such fighter, a young man in a ragged red cloak, knocks a rider from her saddle with a magnificent flying kick. Dromai can't make out his face through the smoke and dusk, but she can tell by his predatory grace that he's a man to be weary of. Though not for long. She brings Tomultai soaring into view. Riku is too close to the rebels to risk Dragonfire. Instead, she whips Silverhair off her feet with the dragon's tail, then charges Tomultai into the fray to rend and tear the traitors apart. To Dromai's surprise, Silverhair struggles to her feet. With shouts and curses, she rallies the few survivors. Dromai spins Tomultai to finish her, but the ragged cloaked man gets there first. Riding a stolen cavalry horse, he scoops the woman up. For a moment, Dromai sees his scarred face. 10 years have turned his boyish features into those of a battle-hardened man. Phi of the Forest of Flames, son of Min, the murderer. Her false sibling gallops down the hillside with the silver-haired rebel, slung over the neck of his horse. Dromai lets him go. She has more pressing matters to attend to. She lands Tomultai next to Riku, protecting her prize, and then frees him from his bonds.
Thank you.
Rasps the general. Dromai smiles, but not for Riku's sake. His gratitude is meaningless. It is the Emperor's thanks. She keenly awaits, looks up at Zathari, rides over the crest of the hill. His sharp eyes take in the scene. His smile mirrors hers.
Now the Emperor will see what I see in you.
She bows her head, accepting the praise and the honor that accompanies it. Like the village of her childhood, her past has been burned away. No longer is she the little girl raised by rebels. No longer the daughter of shame. No longer Dromai, the half-blood. She is where she belongs, where her dragon blood has burned to be for 30 years. She is Drakai. Dromai sits in the oasis, her feet dangling in the cave's shimmering lake. She watches luminous carp flit through the water, hunting flarefish that fall from the lava river. The water comes from Mysteria. The lava comes from Mount Volcor. Here, water and lava meet, a union of opposing forces, just like her. She delivered General Riku to Ashvan. The royal court gave her the mantle of Drakai in return. For a time there, she even allowed herself to celebrate, to luxuriate in the trappings of palace life. Then came the messenger in the night from Zathari.
I have found Un. Time is of the essence. In fact, time was their enemy.
Eagerness for the future. That is what drove them into Phi's trap. Shame at the past. That is what unleashed her fury. Dromai spent years convincing herself of Min's guilt, against her fond memories, against her better instincts. She recited her foster mother's crime each and every night. Yet, when blame was recast in truth, reforged in the blood and fire of the battlefield, she needed no persuasion, only execution. Dromai has sought solace in the oasis before. The ways are hidden, but she is more perceptive than most. She found her way through the mist and winding tunnels. It is a place of refuge, a place of clarity, where she can see through life as easily as she can see through the pristine waters. It gave her no pleasure to kill Un. That surprises her. Justice has been served, and it has left her with nothing. Death is no honor for the dead. Zathari is a different matter. For 10 years, he was her mentor, her confidant and friend. He saved her from murderous rebels. Lies! He offered her a chance to redeem her bloodline. Lies! He gave her a home, a place where she could finally belong. All lies! Part of her wants to hate herself for being so naive, so stupid. But there is no shame in being deceived. Min told her that.
The shame lies with the deceiver.
Another part of her wants to find Phi, to aid him in his grand cause. But then she would be deceiving herself. She has no desire to be ruled by the people. The Volkai are not a power she respects. Like lava, transformed to stone by cooling waters, Dromai feels her pain turn to resolve. Lies can teach just as well as truth. Better even, the spy master taught her to unravel the secrets of the arcane, to uncover and use the secrets of the court. He led her down the twisting way of the Drakai and made her realize it is the only path worth traveling. Dromai lifts her feet from the water and stands on the lakeshore, taking in the cave's beauty, its crystals, its luscious flowers. She breathes deep of the steam and rich scents, committing them to memory. Her future is perilous. She may never come back here. She thinks as she walks. The movement of her feet helps her mind roam free. Only she and Phi survived the ambush. He can shoulder the blame of Zathari's death. It might even help him add a little fire to his reputation. Phi, of the Forest of Flames, Slayer of Drakai. In turn, Zathari's demise will aid in hers. In the Spy Master's name, in the memory of his tragic passing, she will gain an audience with the Emperor. She rescued the Emperor's pet general and slew the rebellion's most notorious leader. The court will remember her name. Doors will open. She will offer favors. She will collect secrets, step by step. The way of the Drakai will lead her to where she deserves to be. She will never belong to Ashvan. Ashvan will belong to her. Beneath Icelander's icy facade, there beats a heart that is warm and full of longing. Her isolation has taught her much. How to survive, how to strive and thrive in a harsh land. Yet, Icelander knows she still has so much more to learn. First, Icelander must thaw the walls that have sealed her away from her own history, from the full potential of her power. She must extinguish the burning pain of her past if she is to harness her arcane future. Voices
echo across the bleak expanse, carried to her by the winds of change. She hears the screams of war. She listens to the whispers of suffering. She is ready to answer their call. From the frozen waste into a fractured world, Icelander's journey has begun, and she will be as unstoppable as the coming of winter.
With the stranger's mask in place, I am but one of thousands in the sweltering city of Ashvan. The Volkai that dwell here honor the rumbling heart of Mount Volcor. Their ritual offerings of rice, silks, and ceramics line the waterways. Incense burns from bronze ashtrays. Prayers float skyward to the mountain's crater, all in the hopes of appeasing this turbulent deity and its callous Drakai. Their struggle is as palpable as the heat which assaults my body and my will. And yet I am comforted by their persistence, grateful for their presence. I have concealed myself in the crowd, though I fear it is only a matter of time before the Drakai unmask my deception. They have come close, too close, and without the full strength of my powers, I am vulnerable. For now, I kept to the waterways, where no Drakai deigns to walk. I remain one with the Volkai, learning their stories as I hope to learn mine. It is from one of these tales, told to me through the rasp and coughs of a dust-lunged bookbinder, that I am drawn to a hulking building of basalt and obsidian. Robed figures come and go, their arms loaded with books and scrolls. I can smell the brooding intent with those tomes, embers of potential, smoking and sulphurous. As dusk gathers, as the scholarly crowds dwindle, I approach this vault of simmering secrets. My modest attire is unlikely to pass for the finely dressed folk who have crossed its grand threshold. So I look instead to the beshadowed alley alongside. The bookbinder spoke of a humble servant's entrance that is often left unlocked. I barely reach the obscuring darkness when a squad of soldiers marches out through the main doors and secures the upper steps. Their horned armor is polished to perfection. Their plumes are long and luscious. Their clear eyes miss nothing as they scrutinize the street. A robed man follows, more resplendent than any other I have seen. I know the cruel lines of his face, and in his arrogant eyes I see my former life writ large. His name is Kova. I am among the chaos of wild children, smeared with ash and soot, as we hook ryokai from a mountain lava stream. I am alone, singled out by a Drakai, a young wizard with sparks in his hands and flint in his eyes. My mother weeps my name, Lyra, as I am bought and paid for with tokens of jade. I fetch and I carry, I falter and I cower. Kova is a harsh master, yet there is kindness in his household. Dang, takes me under his withered wing. The old butler blunts his lord's tempers, while sharpening my thoughts with page and ink. In the quiet moments between chores, I take solace in Kova's books, in stealing his secrets from his library. The words form promises in my mind, speak to the potency of my blood. I learn of Aether and how I might use it, control it. Wind rushes through my fingers. Stone trembles at my touch. Moros dance in the kitchen fires to the rhythm I drum upon the table. These are my delights in the darkness, if only they had remained unnoticed. Once again I am singled out. Kova wishes to possess my fledgling power. The price is no longer jade. The price is pain. I scream at the death walls of his laboratory as he melts the talent from my flesh, drop by glistening drop. When the suffering becomes so fierce that I feel it will burn through my mind, I flee into the cooling climes of my imagination. In my delirium, I dream of another land, a place far from the scorching clutches of greed. I awake in a cave clad in white. At first, I take it for ash. I believe I have been extinguished and discarded, buried. Then I am aware of the creatures surrounding me. Their warmth wards off the cold. Their comfort wards off the fear. They become my companions and carers. My body heals. My strength returns. And yet, my mind remains empty. I do not know where I have come from, nor how I came to be here. I have no name, so I am gifted one by the whispers of ice and snow, the spirits of a frozen wilderness. I listen and I watch. I play and I practice. Ice is my clay. Ice is my craft. I am Icelander. The aether surges in my blood, threatening to boil over into furious action. Tyranny, theft, torture. These are Kova's crimes. Yet, just as I am one of thousands in this city, one of millions in Volcor, he is one of hundreds who fed upon our suffering. In Solana, demons consume the flesh of the living. In Volcor, life is measured in jade pieces and strokes of the whip. Is the veracity of the demon really that different from the appetites of the Drakai? I do not think so. In my heart, I know why Lyra had to die, why Icelander had to live, why Kova must live. For now, to freeze the blood in his veins, that would be sweet vengeance. But what then? Is my strength enough to face the swords of his men? Can I face every blade and arrow in this city? How will I help those who live in fear along the waterways if my blood runs through the cracks of these cobblestones? No, Kova will have his time, and so will the rest. I turn my back on vengeance and slip into the library. Within this hall of knowledge, I will find the words to temper my talent and harness the aether like never before. Wraith needs my help. Icelanders help. When the time comes, I will be ready.
This was an interesting case, considering the 4 boxes I've opened of Uprising were pretty good hits. Our legendary, which is good, but price wise it's on the lower end. But the Marvel that we got was pretty awesome. So can't complain there. But yeah, it's just interesting how you can get some pretty big hits just by buying boxes by themselves rather than getting the case. But the benefits of the case is that you're guaranteed to at least pull a legendary. You just don't really know what you're going to pull from them. But that's why I think it's kind of nice that I'm doing boxes plus cases, and you can kind of see the weird comparison between them. So I hope you all enjoyed the stories today and the case opening, and I will see you all next week. Take care, everyone.